say a little bit about what this group has been up to in terms of Plantica, and then maybe Alyssa would like to say a little bit about what we've been up to in terms of kind of one of the main concrete applications with looking into getting Veganville set up. Oh, wow. So basically what's going on with Plantica is it's a fairly new initiative begun in late September of this year to try to help vegans organize for building communities, right? So I think a lot of us have had the experience that it would be nice to do a lot more community development in our cities with our vegan activist communities. I know groups like Direct Action Everywhere and many others have sort of talked about the importance of really building general vegan community outside of just activism, right? So that's one of the main initiatives of Plantica, is to build vegan communities. But a big part of Plantica is also, if vegans are so inclined, to live in environments where they're largely on their own, whether in intentional communities, right? So that's the topic of this group, or maybe on their own sanctuaries, even if you don't quite have, for animal sanctuaries in rural areas, even if you don't have a full intentional community around you, right? So going into rural areas and setting up animal sanctuaries, that's another thing that that Plantica is interested in, as well, of course, is supporting urban micro sanctuaries as well. Now, this though is the intentional communities group, so we're focused on trying to help vegans think about how to get things together for forming intentional communities. And Plantica, it's very focused on praxis, so we're not just looking at knowledge around community building for the sake of it, but it's really about implementing this stuff. And I think a lot of us here are really interested in some concrete intentional community stuff. And so that's where Alyssa, I think, has for some time been formulating the idea of Veganville, right? And we've had some other serious discussions about how it might get started. And looking into setting it up is one of the main things we can be doing in this intentional communities group. So what we'd need to do, and Rob's going to kind of kickstart us today by talking about some of the basics of intentional communities. He's had some experiences, as he'll probably mention, actually setting up a vegan intentional community in the United States. And yeah, so we'll come to that. But yeah, so Alyssa, do you want to say a little bit about the Veganville before we get going?
Hello, sorry, I'm having
no problem. Sorry. Yeah.
Tech problems, as I always do. So I'm an expert in that. Yes, so we were thinking to start something concrete. Well, like on our part, I think Howard too would like that, and a few other people that are not with us today, including Rob here. So we were thinking of just starting something concrete, a place where we could all live together. So this would be kind of the application of the knowledge we could all discuss and read and learn together. Should I talk about Veganville now, or just
if you want to like yeah, I mean, I was just saying, if you want to give just a brief introduction now, and we could talk more later after Rob's spoken, if folks are interested.
Okay, so I mean, briefly. Oh, sorry.
Are you on multiple devices there? Sorry.
Yes.
I think I admitted you on multiple devices. I muted one of them. So Alyssa, do you want to figure out which device you want to communicate on?
Okay.
So I think Alyssa's just going to get it figured out. So while Alyssa's getting that figured out, does anyone have just any general questions about the intentional communities group so far, or anything they were wondering?
Real quick, Howard, Zach here. Nice to meet everybody, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I saw your group a few weeks ago, and it's kind of something I've been trying to figure out how to accomplish on my own. And then, so once I found this, I was like, oh, great, there's other people that are thinking the same thing at the same time as me. So excellent on that end. So Plantica, just to kind of real quick, is kind of like how to help the vegan community, let's say, figure out ways to implement processes to have better, stronger communities, including intentional communities, et cetera. Is that kind of like
That's exactly it. So yeah,
okay.
and we have several of these vegan interest groups. We're getting started on several of these vegan interest groups. We've got this one on intentional communities.
Okay.
We're probably gonna start meeting with some other ones. At least one on animal sanctuaries, probably pretty soon. Oh, and one actually, the next one's probably going to be the one on health. Oh yeah, Rob, of course. And so I think the health one is going to meet pretty soon. It'll be led by Dr. Gross, who has a plant-based he's a plant-based family doctor. He does lifestyle medicine, plant-based lifestyle medicine. So yeah, and probably talking a lot about how to sort of implement plant-based health and reach people in your community with plant-based health stuff. So yeah, exactly. So you've got it exactly right. It's this initiative to help vegans build community, and the intentional community is one of the aspects among others.
Okay. And then in theory, just one more question. So then the intentional community that let's say this Veganville would be created would kind of be a template to help inform others to do a similar structure or help guide or what have you.
Exactly. And if people have serious ideas about other communities they want to form and want to participate with us, that's great too. We know we have one big, particular template example. Another thing that might be a real application is if I might just be looking to get an acreage in Alberta, and I'm trying to figure out things like, not for a full-blown intentional community, but what kind of arrangement can I have where I could have a few people living there, because there are these restrictions about secondary residences and about all the zoning. And one of the things I think intentional communities have to deal with, which I think Rob will probably be talking about today, is how to get around some of this, and how can you apply for commune status or various these things, because agricultural or rural properties tend to not like having a bunch of people live on the land, right? I think for tax-based reasons, in many cases at least, they really want to keep the number of people living on a property quite limited, especially when it's productive agricultural land. So we're looking at Veganville as one particular template. I might be doing something a little adjacent, depending on how things work out. And then, but yeah, if there's others, like if you were working on one, or we just learned that there's one getting started in BC. Nice. Yeah. So I think Alyssa is going to be talking to Margot, and Alyssa's reaching out to people doing other eco-villages in Canada or intentional communities in Canada. So we'd love, while there is a core group of us in Canada who are interested in the Veganville in particular, we're very interested in sort of general things we could learn from each other about setting these up.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jack. Yeah. Great questions. Great. So Alyssa, are you all set on which device you want to use and everything? Do you want to tell us just a bit about Veganville, or you in a position to do that? Sorry, Alyssa, you're still muted. Let me see if I can ask you to unmute. Oh.
Hello.
Hey. We can see you. How's it going? Hey.
Good. Success. So I'll try to be pretty fast, because I think that maybe in the last section, I'm not sure how the agenda we want to work it out, but I was thinking maybe Rob could go first. We talk about all those issues and like theoretical knowledge, and then afterwards we can go into more practical. So I'll talk a bit more, maybe we can all talk in this section. So I'll very briefly, so Soren and I, when we saw the Plantica event, we thought, wow, that's amazing. That's what we need, right? To not only critique the current system, but to actually build something alternative, something new ideas. So when we went there, we proposed the new idea that we were not sure we were ready to do, but at this point we are ready. And then we found other members like Rob, like Howard, who were ready to jump in. So I think a community needs to be built by many people. But we had a few ideas of how we would envision this place, like as a sharing. Like obviously first of all, we were thinking maybe first people have their houses, so we could do thinking of a tiny community, so small houses, not necessarily the typical tiny branded house, because those are pretty expensive too. So we wanted like thinking a very ecological place using sustainable materials, also having a very friendly people on which we can count and become like friends and family. And I think it answers to this need, at least for mine, to to be, first of all, more effective in the world, because alone it's hard. Even though we're working hard as activists, it's really hard. It's good to be connected, to have a hub of intentional people who are mobilized to actually work on solving. For me, this was like one criteria, but I guess we'll be all talking about what we want in order to see how many eco communities, if that's the case, we want to build, because obviously more than one is amazing too. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I think we can all discuss a bit more when we'll be arrived at that place. So yeah.
Thanks so much, Alyssa. No, that's great. That's great. Excellent. Yeah, and if folks have questions about Vegan Well, I think we can hold that till after. Rob does the main event, which is to tell us a bit about some of the main lessons from these books that he recommended, and we have links to them on the Discord. Yeah, so we have links to them. You can access them on the Plantica Discord server. Here, I'll paste in the Plantica Discord server in case anyone's not on there. So yeah, Rob, would you like to take it away?
Sure. It's not, I'm not an expert on these books. We've had a couple of meetings so far, and we've talked about different ideas. But I came across these two books through a tiny house community workshop, and they just kind of spoke to me in terms of not reinventing the wheel, that there are so many things that you have to go through to create an intentional community. And I'll just share my screen while I'm yapping away here to give you something to look at. If it works, let's see how this goes. Boom. Can everybody see that? Yes? Okay, great. And I want to say off the bat, it's a small group. I just want it to be an informal chat. If anybody wants to speak up, just unmute yourself and jump right in. This is not a big formal show that I have here. I didn't write these books. I'm not an expert on them. I just thought we could learn together. There's a lot of wonderful knowledge in there. Diana Leaf Christian wrote these two books, 2003, 2007. So they're kind of, they're a few years out of date. I wouldn't say they're the current go-to in terms of actually finding a living eco community or intentional community, but they have a wonderful amount of resources, and they're not dry at all. They really try to tell the stories of the various communities and the struggles that they went through. She did like a marathon tour of 16 communities in one summer, from like closeted religious communities to wide open, more quote unquote hippie style communities. And they're just a really good read. And I think what we decided was it'd be good to just kind of go through them a little bit and see what we could learn. And hopefully my goal in this is to try to get people to read them. So, boom. These are the two books. As Howard said, they're available. You can certainly buy them. I am a believer in intellectual property and respecting the work of artists. However, there is a website that I use extensively, Z Library, where you can get free copies of most everything. If you really love it, then you can certainly consider buying a copy afterwards. I kind of struggle with, wanting knowledge to be out there and free, and also respecting the right of artists, especially more contemporary work. So having said that, you can't usually share the links to that website. Facebook will disable them, etc., etc. Please don't shoot me for letting you know that you can find these books online. They're both wonderful in their own way, written 4 years apart. So I thought we could just real quick, there's only 12 slides. I'm not going to talk your ears off. And as I said, please just jump in and say, "You are boring, sir," or I would like to say something now if the mood takes you. 6 areas of study that seem to be common in the books of things you really got to consider when you're trying to build an intentional community. What are you trying to build? Why do you want it? Who do you want with you, and who are you yourself? Where do you want to put it? And how and when can you create it? Those are the common things. And I should have said probably I was involved mostly from afar in trying to set up an intentional community in Arkansas a couple of years ago. It fell apart for most of the reasons that we're going to look at here. It's fundamentally flawed from the beginning, but the experience was really interesting in looking at things through the process. As Diana says, 90% of the projects that she's ever looked at fail, and she's trying to bring attention to why they fail and what kind of things you should know up front. And that really resonated with my experience as well. So jumping into it, again, just jumping in, I'd like to do some rounds as well if people are willing to share their own areas of interest. Some of the basic things, are you into co-housing or not? Are you looking at an urban intentional community or more rural based? Is mobility a thing with you? Is that a concern? Are you happy to lay down roots forever? And again, I've tried to put some page references at the bottom because my intention is not to read the book to everyone or explain everything in the book. It's to get you interested in the knowledge that's in there. Diana describes intentional communities as including co-housing, shared group households, eco-villages, housing co-ops, activist communities, Christian communities, homesteading communities. The world's, the sky's the limit in terms of what you're trying to create. But getting to knowing yourself, what you want to build is definitely a critical part of it. I put the pictures in just to make it look pretty. This is one of my favorite eco communities that you can visit. It's not vegan, so it's not Veganville. And by the way, I'm not sold on the name Veganville. I try not to use the word vegan at all, so we can talk about that. Dancing Rabbit has been around a long time. It's in Missouri, but again, trying to get you to read the books or parts of it, the story of what they went through, trying to decide even what state to be in, how they wanted to live, how they achieved it, how they got their land. It's a really interesting read and something that's really well documented in there. Dancing Rabbit has a pretty active social media presence. They also accept visitors once COVID's over. They're not totally vegan, but there are a lot of vegan community members in there, and it's quite a well-established place. This is a look that I stole off the internet of the central area, and this again kind of resonated pretty commonly with what we were trying to create in Arkansas, kind of a central community house, some central main buildings that may be the first things that get created, and then a lot of space for individual residences of whatever type you can conceive and that the group agrees on. That seems to be a reasonably common model, that even if you do go the tiny house routes or really kind of basic accommodations, having some central structure seems to potentially be useful. But again, that's just one model. Another one that I found, just a picture that kind of resonated, was more of a urban co-housing arrangement, and there's lots of stories in there about this is a proposed one in the UK, but again, there's lots of stories in there about how this might work if this is something that resonates with you. If you're an activist, maybe you're looking for a more urban environment to be connected. There's this endless struggle between wanting to get away from the city, getting out to the roots, having place potentially for animals, if that's your thing, versus having some access to income, being close to the city, etc., etc. Sometimes takes a little more money to buy up a street or buy some urban land and create something like this, but it's just again food for thought. Any questions? Anybody want to jump in so far? I can't see everybody on screen, so please just unmute yourself if you have a comment.
I mean, Rob, one thing I could maybe just ask you, let me know if you'd rather address this at the end. I am fascinated by what that group in the that you just showed, who had built the central buildings and everything. How did they get permission to have that land and have all those residences on it? Did they have to apply for a commune status? Is the United States more liberal than Canada? Or but if you're going to address this later, please feel free to.
I don't get too much into the fineries of the zoning in here. I really think it's worth reading because the stories that are there, but the pitfalls of going through the financing, the way that they vacillated between Northern California and ended up in central Missouri, and some of the fallouts of people that could live with that and couldn't live with that, and their transition is really interesting. But certainly there's a whole lot of flavors of working with local councils, with either impoverished townships that just want people and are willing to make concessions, versus more hoity-toities that just, hey, it's our way or the highway. And it's a project. It's a massive undertaking to to get it right. That's about all I can really say at this point. I'm just going to take a brief sideshow into my own personal vision of the future that I love the most. It's not exactly intentional community. Maybe some of you already know the Venus Project. It's something I was involved in, again, from afar, an admin standpoint. If you ever get a chance to look at it, this is a mock-up. This is not what they have right now. They've got like 27 acres in a little old Venus, Florida. But it's a really beautiful concept in terms of reorganizing the world, of re-spreading out resources. It's something they've been working on for 50 odd years. And if you ever get a chance to look at their vision, the vision of Jacques Fresco and who's now died, the team that followed him, have a look at it. I know I'm digressing, but hey, I like this picture so much. It's another way of living. If it ever gets, even if it has issues and it may never happen, the concepts that it looks at are really interesting. So anyway, moving on. So after the what, and again, I'm going to try to keep this pretty quick. There's the why. More and more people are yearning for more community in their lives. People who feel increasingly isolated and alienated want something more satisfying. I know activists, often vegan people in general, plant-based diet folk, often suffer through dystopia or this feeling of living in a non-vegan world. Activists, as Elisa said, work better when they're in groups. We saw that with the Black Panthers in the 60s. Once they were able to establish common, residences, they were able to do a lot more stuff. But intentional community doesn't need to mean necessarily, buying a block of land and starting from scratch. It could mean something else. It could be community where you are, or it could be seeking residential based intentional community. And again, have a look at the book. There's a lot more description in there of why people do this. But these are some of the reasons that Diana talks about that tend to resonate with people. And I'll read them out, but then I'd like to just go around real quick, and maybe we could just, for those who haven't already spoken, could just talk about what you're looking for, if you're looking for something, or which of these resonate with you. Things like a smaller ecological footprint. Maybe you want to feel safer, be healthier in community, save money, grow as a person, experience connection and support with like-minded friends and colleagues, have more fun. Maybe there's a whole bunch of other reasons. So if you're willing, I'll stop sharing the screen for a sec, and we can just go around. If anybody who hasn't spoken or wants to jump in again, wants to share what resonates with you in terms of looking for intentional community. And I will pass it on to someone. I'm going to pass it on to Diane to start. And then maybe when you're done, if you can pass, obviously. If you want to pass it on to somebody else, that'd be great. We'll try to keep it short. If you're willing.
Okay, well, I think it's
Diane, so I'm so sorry. I think I might have muted you by accident. Diane, could you unmute? Sorry about that.
okay. Cool. Yeah, I love this. I really love this idea. This is amazing. I've been meaning to read the one that Rob had mentioned to me about those books, or at least one of them about the intentional community, and I have not gotten around to it. But I'm so with you guys on this. Especially, I've been feeling it very much lately about the ecological footprint. I so admire people who are able to keep their garbage down to having one or two pieces of something, and my family has made fun of me when I've tried to talk about, different ways of living, this idea of the corn husk house or something like this has always been kind of a joke. And I just think I love this. Why don't we do solar panels? Why don't we do, just more ecological ways of living? Why do we have to have so much waste? We're living in a planet that we think is just, we're making into a garbage dump. Let's do better. We can do this. And I love it. There's so many things. I was just looking at your list, the list there of, I love the ideas. I want to be a part of that. Somehow we can make it work. And I do feel alone very much at the school board with, and even with my family, very often being sole vegan, and even mocked by people about being a vegan, and just a place where you feel safe and you feel cared for. I think I would straddle between the two ideas of needing space, because I know I need personal space sometimes. I definitely need that, but the community idea of living, especially like the sanctuary idea, I love that too. you know, living on a sanctuary, somehow being with the animals and being with people and supporting each other. I just think this could work, and I love this. I think of Vegandale. Wasn't there a place in Toronto, Vegandale? That's those some streets they have, right, that are like for shops and people. Like it was named Vegandale, I think, an area because there was a whole bunch of vegan shops. Am I wrong?
No, you got it
Rob,
right. But it's mostly commercial. It's not
The brand, yeah, it's more of a
anything
brand
specific
thing.
about the residency of the area.
No.
So it's
I
very
just love it.
commercial enterprise.
I love
Great.
it. I would love to see this happen. And I'd love to be a part of it.
Thanks, Diane. Did you want to pass on to somebody else or just?
Yes, for sure. So I'm trying to see who, participant. So I go next, I guess, Peter Cunningham.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, Cunnington, sorry.
Yeah, I've been very interested in this idea for quite some while, like of a intentional community. I actually think there might have been someone that commented about starting one up in where I live here in BC in Nelson. There was a talk about a person, and I don't know, it fizzled out. I don't know if she's still thinking about doing it, but just, you know, living with other people, sharing the land, especially helping animals on the land, just, you know, keeping everything sustainable, especially now with the economy so, you know, unsure of itself, you know, being more able to take care of ourselves, just really feels like the right sort of move to make at this present time, I think. And especially like knowing that you can have others that share your same passion for things, and just a really good way for mental health, physical health, everything. Yeah, just I really think that's be awesome. So yeah.
Thanks. Did you want to nominate somebody else, Peter, or to speak?
I'm not sure who hasn't gone yet. Whoever hasn't gone yet.
Okay, I'll pick on someone then. Does anybody want to volunteer, or I'll say Zoe maybe?
I'll go. Yeah, I can go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is really exciting. I actually got my first sort of taste of eco-village stuff way back in high school. I went to this alternative high school, and we built a yurt, and we had a huge garden. And of course, after this was in Maine, and after like back in 1977 or something. And of course, after about 3 or 4 years of the school being there, nobody lived there except for a few of the teachers. The students would come every day. But they, you know, had to move on. I guess they couldn't, you know, financially afford to do it or anything. But right now I'm actually kind of saving up to convert a short bus into a little home so that when COVID's over, I can drive around and look at places like go to Dancing Rabbit and a lot of other different places and just like find out like what it's all about and see if I can like volunteer or get involved somehow or learn about it. And eventually save up to maybe, you know, build a city or a few cities like the Venus Project, but, you know, vegan rather than just all about whatever, you know. It seems it's kind of sad that very few of these places are vegan. You know, so that's kind of my take, is that we need to start making it normalized that things should be there should be spaces where vegans live and work. And I'd really like to have it be a place where we can do businesses, because right now it's like I'm working remote from my home and it's like just me by myself. And I have certain skills and it's like I'd like to like work with someone else that has other skills and kind of build businesses, because there's just a lot we can do if you have more people to collaborate. And one of the things that I notice when I read about eco-villages is that they expect you to, you know, fly off to wherever they have the land, which is usually like in, you know, some like foreign country somewhere where it's cheaper. And I'm like, well, I can't just like fly off to some, you know, it's like, so I think the thing about, for instance, Dancing Rabbit is in a state that's zoned where it's very easy to, they allow people to build structures that are non-conformist, like you can build earthen homes or whatever, or tiny homes. So it's like finding places that have zoning that you can kind of work with. So I know that a couple of other groups have actually started kind of neighboring farms near Dancing Rabbit just because of that state having such, you know, easy access. So those are things like, especially with tiny houses and living in buses or alternative housing, you have to kind of find ways around the zoning laws. And that's like one of the first considerations. I guess you have to like figure that out first and then find your people and see if they'll come with you to live at that, you know, in that place where maybe it's snowier than they, you know, it's like you have to kind of compromise and figure out, well, like, what am I willing to do to be able to live somewhere that's fairly pristine and where I can like kind of build a saner life. So for me, it's like urban, it's like, yeah, it's doable, but it's very expensive. I know that people have tried to do it in LA. And actually, have you guys heard of Urban Farm Guys in Kansas City? That's an interesting story. I'll put up a link to that if I can get on the chat. So that's kind of where I am. I'm just trying to figure out the finances and figure out, like, you know, traveling around and seeing these places.
Cool, thank you for sharing. I think I saw Riello, if that's, sorry to mispronounce your name, maybe had your hand up before, so if you wanted to go.
Yeah, no, sure. It's Raylo.
Riello, apologies.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah, so I really, like, I know there's another way to live. So, and it's very exciting to me that there's other people out there that also know that there's another way to live. So I just really want to support that, and I'm not sure how. But and actually, like, just like, I'm a fairly new vegan, but like just like 6 months ago, I was Googling, okay, is there like vegan cities? Like, I just didn't know anything about it. And so there's one in Hawaii, which I wanted to go try out. So hopefully I'll get there. I will. But yeah, and then this came across, you know, with activism, this was presented to me. So yeah, I'm just excited to live like in a harmonious way with nature and people and animals. And I have a hard time in Alberta. I've been like trying to like get out of here. I don't belong here. But anyway, so I don't know where you guys are planning on building this thing or where, but anyway, so I just know that there's a harmonious way, but there's a better way to live. And if I can support that and build something with other like-minded people, you know, other people will come too. I think that, you know, they know that there's a better way to live. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you, thank you. Does anyone else have something they want to contribute to the discussion of what they're looking for? I see Ray and friend.
Kelly.
Kelly, sorry. Kelly, did you? Yeah, please share.
Yeah, just for me, I think like this year has been hard on, as of most people. And in our first Plantica meeting, I really resonated with Alyssa's story, which was just giving up this corporate career and realizing that there's way more important things to be focused on. And we both lost our jobs this year, and it just kind of like shown that, you know, this society that we've created is so unsustainable and fragile, and just like everyone else, you know, there's something better, right? And so so I've just been like more and more focused on that. I just feel like I want to change, you know. I don't want to look for corporate jobs. I've been avoiding looking for work because I don't want to go back and do that. It's meaningless. It's soul wrenching. Like it kills my soul, and I don't want that, right? Like I want something more, because, you know, I think in a very short period of time, this earth is not going to be a great place to live, and I want to be somewhere with the people that I resonate with, you know, trying to do my best to make it better. But Ray wanted to talk about, Sailash Rao was on the call last week, and he did something called the Sacred Lifeline Project. So Ray was just going to quickly talk about that.
Well, he had plans for it. Is anybody familiar with the Sacred Lifeline Project? Dr. Sailash Rao, Climate Healers. So he was planning on making a community and was looking into land in Crestone, Colorado. And he had what his plans were, and this is a valley where there's lots of religious retreats and land being given to people that are building sort of little communities, little retreat areas. And he wanted to build a vegan community in this valley that is known to the indigenous people as there's never been a battle fought in this valley. So it's a sacred space. And they wanted to build a network of sacred spaces all over the world, like in every place that would be willing to participate in. The model community was supposed to be the first step. So one of my questions for everybody as you approach this is the idea to find something for you separate from the world, or is it a beacon for the world? Is it a experimental village that is on the world stage, that you're trying out different things, and when you have successes, you share them with everybody? The reason why I ask is because those are kind of opposite, right? You're either in the spotlight, or you're escaping. You're getting out and living by your own rules. So this extremely different mindset could be one of the reasons why 90% of them fail, because people want different things. And I'm assuming that 90% of the reasons why things fail is people, people getting along with people. So there's going to be clashes, and this is one of the things that I should say about the Sacred Lifeline project. It didn't ever take ground. It actually almost started in Costa Rica. So there was a resort that somebody was giving to Sailesh to say, let's do it here. And they went there and they actually had meetings, and a lot of people went to go check out the space. There's lots of documentation, so I could share that with, I'll get Dr. Rao's permission. But there's sketches of the community. It was very similar to the one that was the artist rendition that was shown earlier. A lot of little domiciles to stay, but no kitchens built into them. There's central eating facilities and shared resources like cars and study area and arts studios and things like that. And
yeah, we'd love it if you could share a resource that we could take a look at, Ray. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the features of it was that they would reserve a certain number of units for college students. So they would have spaces where people could be brought in to work on projects. And the idea was, this is a think tank. This is a place to get together, and everybody brings their ideas and works with them. And they get students that are related to the different fields of study and get them to work on the projects, bring their own projects, work on them for a couple of weeks in this, chill little community. So the reason why it didn't happen, according to Sailesh, is that his main concern is, global depletion, climate change, and our global crisis that we face. And the news from the IPCC that we're looking at a crisis that's really going to land this decade. He felt that this wasn't the right move to do a demo and start working ideas. It has to be, fast tracked. And in a way, that's sort of what I was working on. The backup plan for that was conferencing, and which he did in Arizona. And then between conferences, we have the Vegan World 2026. And that is largely the conference now. So rather than getting together in the Sacred Lifeline project, we're getting online together worldwide to work on ideas. So it's a bit of a bummer. It's not in Costa Rica, but
thanks for sharing. That's awesome.
Sitting at home with your webcam. But part of it is that's the reality. We got to start fixing these problems. So that escape, or find a beacon, be part of the lighthouse. They're very different approaches.
Yep, it's
not incompatible, but I can see that's a place where a lot of friction could happen between people that are involved in it.
Totally, and I think we'll talk a little bit about some of the steps that you can take to at least try to understand what's going on. Thanks for sharing. I think I saw Zach with your hand up, and then if anybody else.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm glad he brought that up, because I think that point of contention could come into play, because that didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, I think for something that me and my wife and our 18-month-old now are most interested in is being that beacon, right? Is kind of like, we started an organization a few years ago, really just a website at this point, but wanting to manifest the reality, be the change you wish to see in the world, but make it a beacon of what you're doing, so to speak. So rather than just have the benefits of living in a wonderful oasis type environment, great community, how can you also demonstrate how to make that successful to people across the world and how to really amplify that messaging is kind of like where I think that split, if you have obviously some people who just want to do the one thing and don't want to put a big light on it, is one way to go. But then there's the other side of, do we want to show what's possible? And I think that is another side of it, which I'm glad you've clarified those two directions, because that's a nice point to bring up to people if they're interested or which direction.
Thank you. Any other comments before we jump back into the fray there? Just being cognizant of time, not sure how much time everybody's got, but I see Sorrel has joined the group, so welcome. I'll just jump back quick into the presentation here, but again, just stop at any time. Boom. Okay, so we talked about why, and I think Ray's really, and Zach followed up on an important point of understanding why you're doing it is critical, and finding people that can do it with you. So that leads us a little bit into the who, and the who is everything, as I think we've heard from a couple of people, that accepting someone into the core group or an already established community who isn't aligned with your vision or values, or who triggers strong reservations, doesn't seem to work. There seems to be, like, based on that ratio, 9 ways for this thing to fail at least, or 90 ways, and only 10 ways for it to succeed. And certainly my experience, the who, and understanding yourself and the people around you was just seems so critical. So what I've learned, and what the book seems to underline, is this membership screening process is really important. Really getting to know each other and what you're looking for it's so important. As much as we don't want rules and we don't want to be invasive and we want to maintain people's privacy, like this is you're creating this intentional community, so the intentions have to be understood. And again, there's a lot of, this is really dry, there's a lot of good stories. The intention is to get people to delve into the book. The stories are there about things of why they didn't work, and the successful ones seem to have this theme of making you be an observer, getting you to visit, whether it's virtual or now or in person, answering questions, being interviewed, and having some kind of consensus process to go through it. And the common theme also seems to be having written community agreements so that everybody understands what was kind of agreed to in a screening process. And I just tossed in a couple of other things there that are really have been important to me in my life, which is nonviolent communication training, learning how to communicate with each other in nonviolent ways, nonviolent words, that is, not obviously, but nonviolent actions as well, and having these dispute resolution mechanisms, some kind of dispute resolution mechanism, because the wheels always start to fall off. People have disputes. How do you fix it? It seems every group I've been in seems to have the same problem. And again, I've just given a reference there. She described it as the narrow door, this narrow door to entry. As much as you'd love to have a wide open door and welcome everybody, getting it right up front seems to be critical. Then you get into the where, and I'm just going to go through this real quick, but these seems to be the 5 questions she talks about. Where do you want to be and why? Like really understanding yourself as to knowing that you've got the why right. That you're like Ray said, you're running away from something or you're running towards something. Human beings seem to do things to escape pain or go towards pleasure, and we don't often understand ourselves. At least I don't. Maybe it's just me. Do you want raw or undeveloped or developed land? Do you want to build everything up from scratch? Would you like it? And again, finances plays a part in that. How much do you want to pay for the property on development, construction, ongoing stuff? And how much and what kind of financing is available? And I've got a reference there, but there's a whole bunch of stories, beautiful and really sad stories of ways for things to go well or to go bad. And again, all I can do is keep saying, if you get a chance to read all the parts of the book. The good thing is, if you get the PDF, you can skip around for a word you're looking for, and you don't have to read the whole thing necessarily. So that's a beautiful thing. And that leads kind of into the how and the when, the process, whatever process you all decide on your process. how your financing works. She says it's better to pay cash. Yeah, I guess it is. Well, that would be nice, obviously. But the financing the devil's in the details, and knowing each other's finances seems to be a critical factor, that people are honest and open about what their borrowing capabilities are if you've got to borrow, or their credit scores, etc. As much as we value privacy, if you don't get it right, you end up with equal shares or some kind of shares in something, and people can't meet their commitments. And how do you deal with all of that? As well as internal community finances. How or will community members make a living? How far are you going to be from a place where people could work if they had to or wanted to? What kind of businesses could you use to sustain yourself, and how realistic is that? Yeah. So then this is just a chart just to illustrate that there's a lot of depth and detail in there. I don't know how much of that you can read on your screen, but she walks through this whole process of these overlapping, non-linear kind of processes that she feels are really important common themes to successful intentional communities. And I won't go through all of that, but you can see that researching zoning issues is definitely a key point. The real estate market, financing, property searches, decision-making methods are critical, right? How does the group even make decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So again, all I can do is say, if you get a chance to read the book, read the book. And then the tour, she did this big tour of 16 communities and really walked through a lot of the differences of her experiences in them. It was a while ago, obviously, but I think the truths are still there. And I think Elisa maybe, has had this idea that we should or could try to arrange some kind of virtual tour where we would try to get a whole bunch of these communities together and maybe have some joint Zoom calls with them and get to understand them. And anybody who's willing to do that, it might end up being a separate task, but I'm certainly really interested in something like that. And that's about it for the presentation as it sits. The books are great reads, but maybe we could just spend a little time talking about people's impressions, thoughts. And Elisa, if you wanted to talk about the potential for a tour or anything else that's on your mind, I think that'd be really interesting to me, at least. Anybody want to jump in? Hate the books. Books are terrible. Burn the books. Go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob. Really appreciate it. It's super helpful. And oh, everything okay? Oh, maybe that was just Rob muted. So I think he had some background noise, and I thought something was wrong. But yeah, no, thanks so much, Rob. That was wonderful, and that roadmap of what to find in the different chapters seems extremely helpful. So yeah, well, Alyssa, did you want to talk about next steps with talking to some of the other intentional communities, or where that's going, or anything else that you had in mind about next steps?
So one thing which I thought would be pretty necessary in terms of avoiding pitfalls, as the book talks a lot about, would be to contact as many eco communities or tiny villages. They have very different names, but there is like a website called Intentional Communities, and they have under this umbrella of intentional communities, you can find all the different kinds that Rob talked about at the beginning. So if I was starting to do that, I have a few that I have one that answered and said they would be very thrilled, and they are in Saskatchewan. They're the Crake. Don't know how to pronounce that in proper English, but they are here in Saskatchewan. They're not a typical eco-village. I think they're more kind of a residential, but built on ecological terms, but still he talked a lot to me, and he was really open, and he was ready to tell us about the laws, and they had pitfalls. So I think if someone, I'm just bringing that out, if anyone else wants to maybe work with me to help me contact eco-communities. And once we contact them and they accept, we can send them a doodle to find a common time where we could all people, not necessarily all of us today, but everyone who feels that they want to put that step and to really, really be involved into starting tiny vegan eco community could then come in this event, online event, and we will have access to all those people, or an array of people from with all the different perspective and views. So I think this will be a very good move to be able to understand before actually rushing into it, because I think there's so many things that we want to avoid to be the 90% that fails, right? So I think this could probably help us to understand better, and then once we understand the landscape, then we can slowly and continue. I mean, it's an ongoing process to learn and then to be able to know a bit more about the steps, because for now it's a bit hard to say. We can feel, oh, we should do that, but I feel that it's not necessarily ingrained. Maybe for people like Rob, who actually went through that process, he probably has a real better understanding of the steps. But for now, with my experience with past organizations, it's always better to take the necessary time to really learn. So that could be fun events that we could do more than one, maybe, if we want to learn to have different perspective. And so that's, I'll stop for now, but yeah, I think there's two elements that may be interesting as well. And this would be for the future, maybe to have one, maybe the beginning could be theoretical, so the study group, and the second part, if we have time, or to do two meetings, the second part or the second meeting could be the people who are interested in actually and being committed to look into that and to dive into that process, and hopefully to be able to co-create together something that will be new. And as I forget the name of the person who just talked, who said that we'll be engaged in society. So to be well, to be in the world in a very sane and healthy way in relations to each other, to nature, but also to actually help prevent this catastrophe. Because it's nice to be in this bubble, but if there's a global catastrophe, if we don't do anything, we're not protected in our little bubble of love and community. So I think this, like, it would kind of, for me, I'm talking about my personal orientation now, so it's not general, but I find it sometimes it's hard in life to find the equilibrium, but I think this is what we need to thrive for, to find the equilibrium between being and doing, or being, becoming. So what we can become, our potential that we can potentially grow and expand and discover, but also for what we can bring to the world. So, I mean, at least that's my perspective. So I'll leave it to that for now. And yeah, thanks. And I'm very excited to see all the new faces here, and hopefully we'll be able to build and to learn together. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And I don't know, we're just coming up on the hour, so open-hearted to stay on if anybody has questions or comments. If anybody didn't come or isn't on the Discord server already for Plantica, that's where a lot of the discussion takes place. And there's this intent to form different study groups in different areas, even outside of the intentional communities group. But maybe Howard could put a link or something in the chat, and then we can continue the conversation offline. Again, the intent would be, we've recorded this, so we'll do something with it, whether it's put a link to it in the Facebook chat or on the Discord, or create a YouTube channel. I would hope that if we do tours, virtual tours, that we try to be able to record some of those as well and build up something that could be shared. But I'm totally open, or we're open to any questions or comments that you might have. I have to get back to my forest here. I wish it was a real forest. It's just a $20 thing off of Jeff Bezos, unfortunately. One day it'll be a real forest, and we'll all live there. At least you'll come visit. Any questions or comments? Ray.
Yeah, I was thinking of what I said about that Sacred Lifeline project not materializing, yet regrouping onto an online virtual platform to work through those ideas. And it like however hard it's been in the past to create a community, I think that we have an advantage now that we have this tool, that we're able to build this kind of a community together and start to work through issues. And one of the things we did in probably more than anything else, we were supposed to be solving all the problems of the world. But as we built this network of 24 different study groups, each study group was supposed to learn sociocracy, learn how to make decision-making together. And that process was something that you can do online. So some of the things that you have to learn to be part of this community, I think there's things that you can kind of get a head start on by building the community first, and then you move it into a space, right? So the space becomes secondary, and you don't find out after everybody moves into the space, and you go, okay, let's get to know each other, and then discover that there's a lot of friction and a lot of wow, that's why are you here, you know? So I think that we have much more of an ability to make it work than this dismal success rate that we've seen.
Sounds good. Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks, Ray. And I think that one of the general ideas of Plantica, especially right now, is exactly to, especially as a lot of us are still under lockdown, like we in Alberta are under a very serious lockdown, that we can kind of use this time to do more online organizing so that hopefully, you know, when we get the vaccine and everything, we can hit the ground running. And just in Alberta, like, you know, when we can hit the ground running with more outdoor projects and things like that when it warms up. So yeah, so I think that yeah, it's great. I you know, organize, you know, getting together and doing all this in the planning stages. I agree. It's a really great way to do some of those crucial things that Rob was saying, that we really, you know, the people who are going to be involved need to know each other. One thing, if it just from the chat, so Peter and I and I think Alyssa were mentioning, so we just got in touch with Margot Cornet, who I think was involved in getting the BC vegan eco-village going. And apparently, so just from what she said today on Messenger chat, it sounds like that is actually going, maybe it had some hiccups, but it is proceeding, and they just bought the land recently. So I think if we could set up a meeting with them, I mean, one thing we could ask, maybe we could even ask Margot, because she couldn't make tonight, but maybe we could ask her if she could make next week at our normal meeting time at 6 Mountain on Thursdays. Maybe that would be, because I'm thinking, you know, especially since another vegan eco-village, right? That's very close to what we're interested in. Yeah, so I think that would be really great to look into.
I wanted to say one thing. I liked, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to know each other first before you decide to cohabit, like go live all in one area. I'm not sure how, like, I guess it would be just the process that Rob was saying about, he was saying, you know, you had to go through this kind of interview. Yeah, like they have to go through, make sure you know everything about and you've accepted everything before you, you know, move in. Another thing is about like democratic process. What if you disagree with something? You like a lot of things, and then, but then, yeah, it's sometimes hard to find something if you're on the outside and you can't, you know, I feel like it can be very hard. It can be very hard. You might not agree with everything that goes on, and we don't want to be a group that is so closed-minded that we can't hear other ideas. Like I feel like that in a way, even though I know I obviously I want it to be vegan and stuff like that, but I mean, if someone had other ideas, say, I don't know, I'm just trying to think. I can't think of an example right now, but I feel like it's like it's like mainstream culture where you can't bring something new in because this is the established way of doing things, and I get nervous when I hear, you know, certain. I hope there will be some flexibility in a group that we live, you know, live in a community together, and so I think that's really important. And it's true, how you know each other before you move together, I think that's something that's so important. And how would we do that? How would we get to know each other so well that we felt really comfortable? Should we have like some kind of more gatherings that we get to know each other better? No, I don't know, like what would be the steps prior to make sure that we'd feel comfortable living in an eco-village together? I guess it's maybe part of the book. I don't know. Sorry.
One of the duties, one of the questions I saw on that presentation was, the question was whether we have occupations or not. Do we get jobs, or is it everybody living on, in more of a strict commune kind of setting? That's a huge question. Like, is somebody going to have an income and other people won't? And will there be more expectations for the people who want income? So those are all things you really have to work out in advance. And like I mentioned, sometimes people want to get away because they want to get rid of all the, I've just discovered that I'm a consumer unit, that my government wants me to play this game. And I either know this game really well and I'm loath to give up aspects of it, or I just want to completely, get rid of it all. And that's where a lot of people are not going to be on the same page, because some people have learned how to play that game. Put away the RRSPs and put your money into your mortgage, build your equity, and so forth. So, and rather just escaping that entire judgment system, whether you're good at society or not. We're bad at society. We're terrible with money. We're wrestling with our mortgage right now. So that's one of the reasons why this is really attractive.
There's definitely a lot to talk about. There's no question. Sorry. Somebody was...
So sorry, I cut you. I think those are really good questions that we have to, I'm seeing it as, for the people who are interested, then we'll have to go through that process and then go through all those questions to be able at first to know each one. Like, we all come with the baggage, and we also all come with criterias, right? So for example, someone could want to have this eco-village in the city, someone in the country. So when we were in this small group of 4 or 5 of us, we talked a little bit about that, and even there, we didn't have enough time. So I think, and this is only one criteria, right? Because I think to address, I forget your name, the person who just talked about their concern of, which is totally valid and legitimate, that, right, you want to go in a community where you'll feel at ease and not at home. So you need to know the people, and at what point will we be close, right? Because I've been looking into eco communities, and some, for example, it's like basically just living in a country. It's like a neighbor. The person will be maybe, I don't know, a big distance from you, and in other communities it's closer. And so I think one element, and would be very curious to know what Rob knows about, since he read the book, would be, do they mention how to start? Like, do they start with people, like, we're there, we get to know each other, how we're like, our personalities, and also what we want, right? What are the things in which we're not ready to move? Like, for example, if someone wants to live in British Columbia, for sure, someone else wants to live in Alberta or Quebec, then this is good to know, because we'll know, it's better to know it at the beginning than to think I've been starting the book, than to think we're on the same page and then boom, there's kind of a conflict there. So I think to think about what are our criterias, and also there's so many questions. So I think this is kind of the beginning. We'll be learning with the books, and then we'll necessarily have to go into the process to getting to know each other and asking ourselves and seeing, like, are we aligned or not? If so, it's possible to create maybe 2 communities or 3. Maybe one community will be centered around business, because people, like, for example, I'm just saying that it's not that it should be like that. I'm just giving an example, and maybe other people would like it more centered around a center for a research center. I'm just inventing, but this will be clear, and at that point we'll know, okay, well, So that's the only comment I have at this point. But I think it's possible, and obviously it's not easy, but I think it's aligned with our world, right? All that we need to do today to save ourselves from and save the animals from total oblivion is a lot, and it's hard, and we have statistically we don't have a lot of chance to do it, but doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. No, we certainly must take that chance to do it, because then if we don't, then for sure we'll continue in this spiral of depletion of the earth, depletion, personal depletion, and so on and so forth. So I think it's maybe a big jump, but I think I'm not, who knows? I hope I won't think differently in the future, but I'm ready, and I think we need to know if there's going to be struggle. I think it's good. I'm happy that Rob actually said most of it don't succeed, to have our feet on the earth, but at the same time to still be able to think outside the box. So that's my last pitch. Sorry.
And I guess one thing just to follow up on that and what Ray had said earlier, just to clarify, yeah, I think that one thing, it was Sacred Lifeline was the name of it, which it would be wonderful if we get the documentation and everything from. I mean, my sense from what some of us are looking for in this, or things like this, is not exactly either being a city on a hill that the rest of the world will eventually follow, or just trying to get away from everything entirely. I think a lot of it is actually, the main thing I think for a lot of us is activist support. So even if we only have 5 years to save the world, right? Say, it might be really important to be as maximally effective activists as you can in that time, and getting adequate community support for that short run, might be crucial, right? So I think that's what the main motivation a lot of us have in thinking about this is trying to get the community support that will enable us to be as effective as we can be in all of our roles. And then and then the other part, for me, it's having an animal sanctuary. So, because I've been rescuing animals for 11 years, and we're probably getting to the point where we have to move out to an acreage soon. So yeah. So I think the community support element, I think, is really crucial. And I think that does sort of fit with the short run thinking. I mean, the short run emphasis of things like Vegan World 2026, but it does involve having to think that, the role of the intentional community is not either to be a city on the hill, nor to be a totally separatist thing, but more like sort of a support network for a lot of us. So yeah.
Real quick, Howard, if I may.
Please, yeah.
So I know I've heard now, so a lot of people are from Canada in the talk, right? Is that right? I'm from in the States.
No, that's cool. I'm a U.S. citizen still. I grew up in Chicago and went to school in Michigan and New York. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, as far as, is there a microstructure within this, as far as, even if we just had a general questionnaire and just kind of funnel people into you're in a Canada region, or you're in a staying in the States region, or any of that kind of on the trajectory coming up? Or is this just kind of like most of the people in the group currently are wanting the same basic thing in the same basic spot? I'm just trying to understand the picture of where we're at.
Rob, you want to?
Yeah, I would say we're really in the formative stages. So
yeah.
I kind of like the process of exploring, reading the books, even just being exposed to different people's stories, from short bus conversions to foreign Sacred Lifeline. That'll lead us. So you may not find the intentional community, may not be within this group, but hopefully we'll find the one that each of us are looking for. It'd be great if we had numbers to say, okay, US, Canada, separate. I'm not opposed to going anywhere in the world or any particular structure, and I take Howard's point that it may not be beacon, it may not be running away, but there's just a million flavors out there, and the overriding theme that in my experience, which is still limited, and also in the books, is it's communication and then trials, trying things out and getting to know each other, because you might not even exactly know what you want until you've experienced it for a while. We get these images of how things are going to be in our head. So it doesn't answer your question, I know, but the States is warmer. That's why we all huddle next to the border. So if it ever opens up, when it opens up again, then maybe that's a possibility, or you may want to come up here.
I was just going to mention briefly about that though, Zach. I know at the planning meeting that we had a few weeks back, we had some other folks in the States who were very interested in intentional communities and sanctuaries. So I think that one way it could develop is we could, depending on who kind of jumps on this, like Rob said, it's very formative right now. I think some of us who were most gung ho about starting it were this group from Canada, but I know there's other interested folks. Yeah, and so if we had enough people in the States and and you all were interested, I'm sure that's something that could develop. The other thing is, I think there's just a lot of opportunity. I mean, the States is so much bigger, right? You're 10 times bigger population wise. So I know, Alyssa, we're trying to concentrate on interviewing or making contacts with the Canadian eco-villages, if anything, just to prune the search tree a little bit and to sort of maximally inform our group. I mean, because I think one thing we talked about is, could it even be possible to join something existing, right, in Canada for those of us who are Canadian citizens and can easily travel about Canada, but not so much internationally. Or Canadian permanent residents too. But I think another thing we could think about, and I think this came up at our last meeting, is would contacting other groups in the States be something that could be a good idea? And I think that especially if there's some of us who might not be able to, who are like U.S. citizens like yourself, who would be able to learn most directly from them, and maybe even join something existing if that was there, and it was suitable. That might be a really good thing. So I think one thing some of our U.S. members could be thinking about is if they were able to do some of the or look into maybe doing some of the work that Alyssa's been trying to do so far with like researching and contacting some of the existing ones. Alyssa's been doing it for Canada, but if some folks want to do it for the States, I think that would be really great. Oh, Rob, are you muted?
Also,
No,
sorry, go ahead, Alyssa.
Lisa, please, Alyssa, go ahead.
Also there's an already existing networks of eco communities, but I think this is more in terms of just sharing information. I think another possibility would be if we have people from United States that can't start an eco community here, if we start one here and there, that we could have like it gives the opportunity to move around, right? If we think of something kind of it's two different locations, but they could be part of one. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas to allow people to move around. And I don't know. I think there's one element I would like to put on the table, just in terms, this is just very boring and organizational thing. A question I would have to everyone here today would be, should we have this like meeting and, well, actually I have 2 points. So first of all, I think Ray talked about decision making. I think this would be good to know, because at every point, even now, I'm about to ask a question, but if we don't agree on the way to make decisions, then it's kind of hard to make it, right? So I know Sarin and Rob, they know about self-organizing systems and integrative decision-making, which is pretty easy to do and pretty efficient. So that would be one point, to maybe decide on the way to decide. And then the second point would be as a proposal. So maybe in the future, for those recurring, first of all, it could be maybe recurring meetings. And in the future, either I think we could start with talking about what we read, just knowledge exchange based, and maybe this this is open to everyone. You don't need to want to start an eco community now. So it's kind of the study group, the first section. The second section would be more practical, would be for the people who are interested would stay, the people who are interested to start an eco community. And obviously there is no contract. We'll see how it goes. If we, as we say, if we're not aligned, maybe we can create 2 communities. So it's no contract at all, but just a kind of an engagement to seek in that direction. So that's a proposal I would have. And maybe before answering that, I would maybe leave the floor to Sorin or Rob that would maybe talk about like decision, how we can make a decision. So that's it.
I was just going to say something simple like stick around for the ride. It's going to be interesting and we'll see where it takes us, you know. I think it may be another whole session to talk about decision making and stuff. I just hope people got something out of this session, that maybe they'll look at the books. A lot of it is US based, you know, obviously, by the way. And hopefully you can see that there's some interesting things to talk about. And a lot of it is, you know, decision making for sure, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a million things that we could think of. And that's all the beauty of it, is the brainstorming, you know, there's political views, religious views, how people want to live, how people change, how you adapt to change, decision, and the devil is, the hypothetical devil is in the details. And it's just getting to know each other, building a solid base. There's different models where, you know, a couple of people can end up buying a property and other people buy in over time, or there's just a million things to discuss. And it's really important that they are discussed. And those concerns are definitely 1,000,000% valid. I don't want to know, you know, will there be puppets? Will there be clothing? Who knows? Like, there's just so many things to discuss that are critical. And I look forward to discussing them all with you, if you're willing. And I'm just conscious of the time. Personally, I have to take off at 9:30. I don't know how other people's times are, but I'm not critical to the discussion. So did we want to wrap things up really soon, or did you want to keep going after that?
I got a quick question. I mentioned the 2 places the Sacred Lifeline project was going to start up was Crestone, Colorado, and this resort in Costa Rica. I'm assuming both of them are still available. The land in Crestone is owned by Hannah Strong, who's the widow of Maurice Strong, who just died in 2015. He was you know, a dignitary in Canadian politics and the United Nations. She was giving away land to different religious groups to create these retreats, and was willing to give land to Celeste to build this vegan village. And I think her main objective is peace. If it's a part of a peace project, then it's something that'll be attractive to her. So that's something that's of possible interest. She's a Canadian. This is land in Colorado. And I'm not sure if Celeste was that central to the Sacred Lifeline project, or that was a bigger project. So if it's something that is of interest to people, we could find out a little bit more about it, because they're planning on making chapters in Israel and Russia, I think was mentioned. So you would have an affiliation where you could actually move from center to center if you wanted to get a change of scenery. It's kind of a neat idea.
Sounds interesting. So yeah, anything you can share on that is certainly welcome, right? So,
okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Best thing would be to get Celeste involved in the meeting, so I'll try to drag him along next time.
Yeah, that's cool too.
Sorry for the late notice on this one. I know, yeah, I just got it. I just posted it in the Vegan World 2026 Basecamp super late, but yeah, we're meeting every Thursday, so I'll post about next week's meeting, probably as soon as we finish, if that's okay. Yeah.
And I put the links to the PDFs that I have on hand. I just took a cursory look through them. I didn't see the mock-ups, so I was asking if there's a place that I could find the most comprehensive information on the Sacred Lifeline project to share with everybody. But he just sent a message saying, of course, you can share the PDFs of any of the Sacred Lifeline project information.
Great. Any closing thoughts or comments? Anyone else? Soren?
Yes, I will close with a very quirky thought, but a quirky like citation. I am committed to the what because of the why before knowing the how. So that's my closing thought, because I think that there's a lot of, first we got to figure out the why, and there's a lot of whys, and perhaps if we find the right why that is the same for everyone else or close enough. And I do have a small idea around that, like maybe we could like have a questionnaire or survey, like I think someone said like about a questionnaire, like see if we can like match and have like a shared purpose. And then we can define what we really want closer, like, the what. And then we can actually start talking about how we do it and stuff. But I do appreciate a lot the theory and everything you gave us, Rob, and the time. Like, it's great. I plan to like read the books. So I do think I think that the space of this group is to like get a bit of like theory, work together, like figure it out. And there will also be like some practical aspects. So I appreciate the practical aspect and all the practical work that Alisa does, like try to like do virtual tours and try to like get started with some decision processes so we can see if there's, so if I understood correctly, I think that Alisa would like to have some theoretical discussion and maybe some practical discussion. So I don't know how we want to separate that. Like if we want to do it in the same group at the same time or different, or maybe we're not ready for practical discussion yet. Maybe a questionnaire would bring us to be ready to that. So, but I think that that's a little bit of, those are my closing thoughts. Thank you.
So really quickly, if no one has anything else just at this moment. So my thoughts about next steps would be, I think it would be great if we could start. One thing I think it would be really good to do early on would be to meet with some of these other folks like Margot and others, who have the existing eco communities, and just have them say a little bit about their project, and then maybe we could ask them some questions. So I think that would be a really nice short run activity that we could do. And then, I don't think, that would be both theoretical and practical all mixed together, I think. And then after that, I mean, my sense is, there's a lot that we could do by looking at some of these concrete applications, like, in terms of finding a property, if you actually were doing the shopping for Veganville, or I was looking for an acreage in Alberta, because I'm tied to the Edmonton area because of my tenure track job there, and my animals need my professional managerial class salary. So I'm yeah, so like, or if we could sort of work through looking around, shopping for counties where I could get multiple people to help me on a sanctuary. I think either of those those kinds of applications would be really, really useful. And I guess if we did the Veganville one, just like shopping around the counties, I mean, maybe we could have like at first just talk through the chapters on zoning and shopping for properties, and then we could like actually do the work for Veganville in the first part and the second part. But I think that would be, I think that could work quite nicely. Cool. So Soren, yeah.
Can I just add one last thought that I have, and I'll put it in the chat anyways. Like, I'm sorry, Rob, like I'm keeping you here. Like,
that's right. Sorry.
It's just because, like, so one idea would be like with a survey in a practical way, we can like find out some things about each other. But what, like Rob really made me think with like the presentation and really having to know each other. What if instead of like considering shopping and buying, we would consider renting in a first stage? So within like, like a first stage, like consider renting a place together, renting an acreage, renting like something big common where we could just, even if it's not perfect in what we would first. So first, it would give us the option to not look for the perfect place, just a place where those who want to can be together. And that would also like make us know if after 6 months we just want to hate, You know, no way, man. It doesn't matter if the world survives. I'm not living with you. So
my suggestion would be if we can jump on the Discord server over the next few days and put in potential ideas for an agenda for next week. That's certainly one great idea to look at. I think when you start looking at land, there's a whole chapter in the book on, hey, y'all, don't go out and buy land right away. There's a lot of things, a lot of different ideas people have. Maybe we can come up with something of an agenda. And I do think definitely a questionnaire to get to know each other, a deeper knowledge of what we would have a vision of something that looks palatable to us. And, you know, maybe some playing around with real estate as well. There's 100 things out there. Maybe over the next few days we can pull an interesting agenda together for next week. But I think Elisa's kind of stepped up to be the coordinator of this group, so I definitely defer to her wishes for next week. And thanks for sticking. I can't believe you were stuck with 12 slides. That was a lot of yapping I did. So thank you for listening, my friends. And I'm going to have to run now, so I'll let you.
Thank you.
Diet as you wish. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Rob.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. So
Thank
whatever
you.
we do, it'll be same time next week, right? So
All right, we're wrapping up then anyway. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Is
Thank you.
Everybody, nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. And yeah, we can communicate more asynchronously about the next time. So sounds good. All right, cool.
Absolutely.
So I'll go ahead and
Thank
end it
you.
then. Yep. Take care. Thanks, everyone.